What is up, guys? Welcome to episode 16. No, no. Oh God, hold on. I'll do this one more time. It's 15. What is up, guys? Welcome to episode 15 of Straight to the Kokoro. I'm joined by Megan Hayes. Megan, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Did I butcher your name?
No,
Okay.
that's
Okay.
it.
Always worried about that. I feel like names are the hardest thing about working with online clients.
Yeah, I have an extra letter in there, but it's still just Megan. I've gotten the question growing up. It's always like, is it Meagan? And I'm like, have you
That's
ever met anybody named Meagan before?
haven't yet.
Really? Okay, well, fair enough.
Is there anyone with that name?
Meagan, I've never met anybody named Meagan, but I
Oh,
get
yeah, I haven't met anyone named Megan yet.
okay. Yeah, like but I get it frequently enough that you would think that there would be a couple people out there named Meagan. So we'll
Eventually.
go.
I feel like something I'm definitely curious about, like you're an entrepreneur in the fitness space, and then is it just you and Caroline who own Monarch?
Yeah, Caroline and I are co-owners.
Okay. Like how's that kind of been? Like I feel like the fitness space, we both work in it, right? Super competitive. I can imagine like there's challenges being a guy in the fitness space and then vice versa, I imagine on the other side. If you want to kind of go into what that journey's been like, because you guys have been doing it for a good amount of time at this point, right?
Yeah, so she actually came on board specifically with Monarch in March or April of this year,
Oh
but
wow.
I started Monarch 3 years ago.
Okay.
So I've been in the online space with fitness about 3 years. I've been in the coaching world in person and online for about five. And then I've just been like in the gym for about 10.
Okay.
And it's the crazy thing about I think online fitness business and that space is just the constant evolution of it. Like you never just learn something about business or fitness or coaching or anything and then just like have it for the rest of your life. It's always changing. So right as we think we figured out how to run the business effectively, it changes. DM outreach changes, like protocol development changes. Something is constantly changing. But I think also like as a woman in this space, it's really cool to see every single year more and more women kind of reach that level of like being respected as one of like either like the top coaches or top athletes in the game. Whereas like again, like 10 years ago when I first kind of started being interested in this space, there were not nearly as many women up there to look up to. So that's been really, really cool to see.
Cool. How'd you end up getting into fitness in the first place? So I got in around probably like high school, like you were 17, I think, because you were, yeah, happy
Yeah.
belated.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, like I started around the same time. So I'm always curious, like what was your initial motivation? Like, or how'd you what was like the beginning of your fitness journey?
Yeah, I was just always I was a very, very like petite, scrawny thing growing up, and those are my dad's genetics. He's just like a very like tall, thin guy. I didn't get the height, but I did get like the scrawniness kind of. And I just remember seeing a picture of myself going to my junior prom, and as soon as that picture was taken, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I look like you could just beat me up in 2 seconds." I just felt like I was so tiny, and right then as well was when Instagram kind of came about. And so it
Yeah.
it was just wild because I mean I've as much as long as I've been in the fitness space, I've also been in the Instagram space. Granted, I've started over so many times that I never truly built the following that I could have having a 10-year-old Instagram. But that all being said, I was on there pretty early on watching a lot of like the very early influencers kind of gain their following. And Buff Bunny, Heidi Summers, who is just an icon in like the fitness influencer world, was competing at that time. And I saw pictures of her, and I think she had a YouTube series of her competing and everything. And I was like, that's it. That's what I want to look like. That's what I want to do. And it took me just about 10 years to actually compete,
Uh,
but seeing her and also watching her grow as an entrepreneur. I mean, this woman is an incredibly powerful, impressive entrepreneur with what she's been able to create in the space. She was kind of like my catalyst, alongside just wanting to be stronger and healthier, and that's always kind of been one of my main drivers from the start, was just being stronger.
I feel that. I think I was like 121 when I was like a junior in high school.
Wow,
And,
that's like what I am now.
yeah, and I was just like, well, everyone else is like lifting, going to like our YMCA was across from our high school. So people would just like go there and throw weights for like 2 hours. And of course,
Yeah.
everyone's got like me and Connor, like when he first interviewed me before I moved out here, we were talking and like bodybuilding.com was the like 5 minute in conversation point, specifically like the miscellaneous.
Yes.
And we were just like talking about like all the this came up the other day, like all the stacks, like you could buy like the BSN stack or whatever it was, and it's like everything else is shit, but you're taking like muscle milk, so like you got to get somewhere.
Yep. Yep. I remember just all of the different like the Steve Cook workouts that you could download and like
Yep.
they were all free. Yeah.
So that was like, yeah, that was definitely my beginning. And I think I was in a similar place just as a guy where I was like, confidence wise, it didn't feel good, at least for me. Like, can't
Yeah.
do it. I was just like, shit. And then I think like once I got pretty into it about a year later, people were just like, oh, you probably can't deadlift like 315 without gear. And of course, like we're in high school. And I'm like, that doesn't seem very legitimate.
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool. I'm gonna go do that. And then I think, yeah, I did it before I graduated high school. And then like,
Yeah.
but it was just funny because it was like, yeah, you thought like how different the perspective is now, where like, I'm sure you've been around a lot of powerlifters in different gyms you've trained.
Oh,
Like you see people just squat like, over 500 casually for reps, and you're like, yeah.
yep. Yeah. Actually, my good friend, his name's Hanman, and he's been doing powerlifting for a really long time. He's involved with Beyond Built. He can very easily rep out. Never been on gear, never done anything like that. Is one of those people that was kind of just like born to be strong.
Yeah.
Won't squat for 3-4 months at a time. We'll head into the gym, do a nice little warm up, and then rep out over 500 pounds. And very unassuming guy when you look at him, just like a regular guy, just like a regular dude. And it's a beautiful squat. And he just like I think it's like 3 to 5 reps with over 500 pounds, and he just racks it, walks away, and you're like,
Did he wrestle or anything like when he was younger?
I don't know. I gotta ask him. He'd been doing powerlifting for a while and then took a break for a while and did like a little bodybuilding and then just isn't. I mean, he's a pretty consistent guy when it comes to fitness for the most part, but not with any like particular goal. He just so happens to like maintain strength miraculously. Same with bench, same with deadlift. I mean, this guy is just like you're just like what? Every time he walks in the gym, just wears like a sweatshirt, baggy shorts, goes in there, does his reps, and you're like, who is this dude?
Those are the people I'm scared of. I'm just like, oh no. I
Yeah.
feel like I've met a lot of people who either are like high level track people, like sprinters, or like really good wrestlers, either like a high school or collegiate level. And they seem to I know someone who's that, where he's like squatted like the third time and someone's like, is 315 good? It's like, yeah, dude, you weigh like 135. Like, we're 17.
Yeah.
Oh, he's like, I don't do this.
Yeah. That's just wild to me.
Just
I
like,
wish I could be that. Not gonna happen.
I feel like so much of that's like genetics. Like even when you get into like tendon insertions, if you ever been exposed to any of that stuff,
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
just like, yeah, I can't go have surgery and be like, move my hamstring down.
Yeah, I was saying none of mine. I remember reading that in the CSCS textbook, and it was like talking about like the true like genetic potential that you have in terms of insertions. And I was like, okay, so I was born to like not have any of it, I guess. I was screwed in all of it. I grew up actually running was like my like not long distance running, but when I was in softball, the only thing that I was really good at was the running part of it, was being fast. And I loved to just like anytime I got to like steal a base, I was there for it. I slide literally from one to another. I had awful hand-eye coordination, couldn't catch a ball, could barely throw a ball, could barely even hit a ball, but I could run. And that kept me on the team for like 6 years.
They
So
give you like a pinch hitter.
yes,
Oh
after
yeah, that's it. I feel like that's the fun part too, though. I mean, hitting the balls over in like what, milliseconds basically,
yeah.
and then you just get to run and possibly like psych someone out stealing a base.
Yeah, I was pretty good at it. I got on base most of the time, and that's all I was really good for a couple years. And then decided to do track. I was running in the wrong shoes, and I really messed up my feet right at the beginning of the season. And I like because I mean they put you through like 2 hell weeks or 2 weeks of like hell week or
Like
whatever.
doubles, basically.
What?
Is it like doubles, like 2-a-days?
Yeah, it was just like the most intense practices to like quote unquote condition you. And this is high school sports for
Yeah,
like
yeah.
small town high school sport where it's like someone's dad's like coaching. And yeah, they just condition you just hardcore for the first 2 weeks. And it messed my feet up and my shins up so bad that I couldn't even participate in that season because it was just like
Oh
you
yeah.
really fucked up. And
Yeah,
so
like
yeah, after that, that was actually like right when because I was doing all these different sports and trying to stay active. And then when I like quit softball because I was just so small. Like I said, in high school, I was so small, was never getting any play time. And they really didn't even like want me on the field because I was just like that tiny. And the coaches have been saying that to me for so long, like you're just gonna get hurt. It's like that's weird. Um, I decided not to play softball, tried to do track, didn't end up doing track, and then was like in ASB. I was doing student body stuff, and I was like, I
okay.
gotta be active somehow. I gotta like do something with my body. And then that kind of led me down the road of like, oh, like weights. I can get
Yeah.
that.
I feel
Yeah.
like I played like everything growing up, and then I just feel like I hit a point where it was like you actually had to be pretty good at the thing you were doing.
Yep.
And I was like, well, I can't do any of this, and we don't have like rec leagues anymore. And then
Yeah.
I think similar, I just fell in the process. I fell in love with the process of getting stronger and just like training, and also pre-workout when we started training was actually drugs still.
Yeah.
Like I just remember taking shit and then like, and it's banned. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that's right. Like this is meth.
Yes. Yeah. I remember that too. I remember that too. And my mom kind of freaking out a little bit. And she was like, is this the stuff that you're taking every time that it would like come out about it? And they'd be like, no.
That's yeah. I feel like that's like did you ever take craze it was called?
Oh, I no, I have not crazed. I think it was what was it? I forget the name of it, but it was like
Jack 3D.
everybody was taking it. I took the Raise energy drink, but that one I don't think had meth in it. That one was
I
a little
don't think so. I know the original Jack 3 was like DMMA.
yeah, yeah,
Like and then there was something in craze which was like a derivative of that. But I
yeah,
just remember like the mind muscle connection was like disturbing. I'm like I could feel like fibers, I think. Like and yeah, I think yeah, my mom sounds like your mom. She'll be like, "Is that safe?" I'm like, "This is Tylenol." Okay,
yeah.
okay. It's like no. So are either of your parents into fitness, or you were like the first one to kind of move more towards that?
Yeah, I would say definitely. I mean, both my parents are scientists, and I definitely grew up in that environment. But my dad, like, he played sports and he was just really active growing up. And my mom, the environment that she grew up in was kind of like out in the country. She had a horse and everything, and so like my
Yeah.
dad kind of like played sports as a kid. My mom just like, when you're like when you have a horse and you take care of a horse and you have land, you got like stuff to do.
Oh
My
yeah.
made her like very accustomed to like power tools and housework and stuff like that. So that was kind of like their way of staying just like active growing up, and very much so has kind of carried on into their adulthood. They go kayaking and they do other things. They like to hike, but it was never like, oh, we're going to go into a gym and do the whole fitness thing. So even coming out of college, because I went to Berkeley and I got a degree in conservation and resource studies, and it was a bachelor's of science because I was like, okay, like my mom's a marine biologist, my dad's a microbiologist, and I was like,
Oh
I'm going to
damn.
go the environmental science route and work on like conservation. But after coming out of school, like I had already gotten in college, in high school, I was interested in fitness. I just didn't think I could make a career out of it. And
Same.
through college, like I mean social media blew up, and fitness was like one of the main niches that social media was able to really facilitate as something that could be like a fully paid career. And so slowly as I got my degree, I started thinking I don't really know if I want to do anything with it. I loved the courses I took, and I still, I wouldn't change anything. But I came out of school and I was like, well, I don't want to do anything with this. I tried an internship. I worked in an office for a couple months, hated it. And then worked as a server for about 2 years trying to figure out how exactly to make fitness full time, whether it was going to be influencing or whether it was going to be coaching. And right now I kind of have a little bit of a hybrid approach to both. But mainly like income comes from being a coach. And I remember like telling my parents when I first like graduated college and had that degree, and they were like, you have a Berkeley degree and you're going to go work as a server because you want to do fitness on Instagram. It's like, it's my dream. So they were kind of like, what the fuck? But my parents are also just really awesome and very supportive. And so they were like, I mean, hey, like if you can swing it, if you can figure this out and on your own and embark on your own journey, go for it. We don't understand it at all.
Yeah.
I remember like trying to make like those like, you know, quote unquote healthy recipes that you
Oh
would like
yeah, I remember.
butter and stuff. And my mom would be like, that looks awful.
With Quest bars and stuff. You're just melting Quest bars in the microwave and throwing peanut butter on them.
Exactly that. And she'd be like, I don't know what that is, and I don't know really why you're doing it. And I'm like, fitness, mom. It's all
Oh
about
yeah.
fitness. And she's like, okay. So yeah, I think still to this day, like the bodybuilding world, when like going through competition and everything, they are both incredibly so supportive, but absolutely do not understand it still. I mean, even when I was putting on my tan, my mom was like, Megan, are you sure that's just like not too dark? And I was like,
Yeah.
no, it's too light.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're great, but definitely not the world that they grew up in at all.
Yeah, they're more like outdoorsy, it sounds like they're like DIY people. Like
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
happy you shared like the part because I dealt with some, so I have a marketing degree, like I have a bachelor's in marketing. And I was the first person to go to college in like my immediate family. So I think there was like, there's the natural, there's like the road that's paved for you kind of where it's like, hey, these are the things you should do. And then I just remember like working a business and I was trying to do the same thing. Basically, you described while you were a server. My parents were like, you're not gonna like, how are you gonna make a living doing that? Out of worry that like how yeah, financial success
Yeah.
and stability. And then at this point, they're like, oh, okay, it's not a problem. And I'm like, no, it's not a problem. Like I
Yeah.
make more than I would have made in business.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
and it's way more fulfilling. I think that's like the other thing that I feel like you can comment probably with having the community, especially like
Oh yeah.
up this morning from a text from someone who's like, I haven't been able to do this in forever. And I was like, yeah, it's really fulfilling. And it's cool to know that like the stuff that we do impacts people in that way.
Oh
Versus like I was selling lab equipment and I was like, I don't give a shit about this.
yeah.
Like, yeah, it wasn't the thing that like got me out of bed in the morning. And neither was working at a box gym.
Yeah, I did that too for a while. I was working at Gold's, and they really just make it so much about the numbers that you hit and the
Yeah.
quotes and everything. And that I just don't think you can really escape that in a box gym. You're just always gonna have superiors who are keeping track of that and praising you for that because it really is a business in that sense. And like when you get to be your own coach and run your own business, you also get to kind of pick your own business values. And I think you really start to understand when it is like all your own journey and your community that you're building, that your community and your brand and your business are going to be successful when your people are happy. And I think like those big corporate gyms don't really care if clients are getting results. They don't get to have that same kind of like even interaction. Like you think about the people who own the Gold's Gym franchises down to the gym member who signs up for their like they do this like yearly challenge. Those two people will never interact. Those two people, will never get to kind of have that moment of like, wow, like you've changed my life. And I think us being kind of like the CEOs or the admin of a business and simultaneously getting that kind of one-to-one experience with our clients and their results and how they're just literally you change their life. They're
Yeah.
and how happy they are, that starts to fuel your business. And it's so much more rewarding to do that kind of work every single day for sure.
I think, yeah, I noticed that too. So I was at a Lifetime, and then I was at a smaller boutique gym before that. And I just felt like more with a Lifetime, like there were people who definitely would say that, and their clients would say they changed their lives, but I felt like they did 25-minute sessions, and I'm like, we're not getting anything done. Like, nor am I comfortable selling you like, 65, $75 worth of 25-minute training. Like, we're gonna get through probably four movements. Like, chances are you're not gonna warm up. You're gonna warm up on your own. You're gonna cool down on your own. Like, and then like you see people just super infrequently, and it would be like they're happy, but I think it was more of like a trying to think of a good analogy, but I feel like similar to like you complain at the airport, they give you a voucher for food, and it's like you're happy again. But
Yeah.
the next time you fly, you're like a delay. I'm pissed off again, and you just like keep going through that same cycle essentially,
Yeah.
like the customer
Exactly.
service.
Yep.
Versus like I'm thankful most of the clients I deal with, like I know a lot about their personal lives too, and I can have some help with like lifestyle stuff, which I know you guys also talk about from what
Oh
I've seen
yeah.
post. So it's like cool, like you don't just leave here and then go, maybe make terrible food decisions, or like help your social life be organized a little bit differently. Like there's more ways that we can help them just live their best lives, as corny as someone's probably going to say that sounds.
Yeah. No, I mean, it really is that, and it is. I saying as well too, because of like how corny it does sound, but at the same time, like we are able to be kind of so plugged in, so dialed in that like we start to know what their interests are, what their relationships are like in their life
Oh yeah.
across the board. A lot of these people we talk to like every single day, and it it's so much different when you have a client instead of just like, oh, here's a workout plan. There's like, here's a workout plan, and here's what we're doing to improve your sleep, and here's what we're doing to help you manage your stress, and here's what we're doing to help you, have a better relationship with your food. And it really becomes so much more big picture about like how do you make this a true shift in lifestyle and choices that like just bring you actual happiness and are doable instead of like follow this workout plan and you'll get ripped.
Yeah. I think too, it's just cool because it evolves as we evolve as people too, and like grow and learn. Like there are times I'll definitely have like, I'll make lifestyle changes and then see like 3 weeks down the line, like the momentum of that change. But it'd be like morning routine stuff, could be supplementation based. Like I'm like, okay, cool. Now I can communicate that to them in whatever way it fits their puzzle essentially of wellness.
Oh yeah, I feel like we oftentimes as coaches we're the guinea pigs before we even.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Yeah, I like that. I like to be the guinea pig. I mean, there's so much stuff that I learned with you guys that are like just essential in explaining things to my clients, even if I'm not like giving them like very specific like PRI exercises. It's still understanding things like breathing. Just talking to my clients about breathing,
Oh yeah.
life.
I mean,
Most of them don't breathe right.
no, it's crazy. I mean, something we always come back to at the gym is like there's like 721 techniques, I think. Neither of us know all of them, and the names are even more like out there, but like we probably use like 18 of them most of the time. And like one of the most simple ones is just like really good side lying breathing because you have the influences of gravity and stuff. And it's like sometimes like we'll be overthinking. We're like, all right, we gotta twist your foot that way. We gotta have you like reach to this thing, and like you look like you're playing Twister, and then we're like, what if we just put them in side lag? And
Yeah.
that's the thing that changes all the assessments. And we're like, okay, again, it's like simple, simple, like start again.
Yep. The lesson of life. It's probably more simple than you think it is.
It is. I always love the loop of like what is it? It's like beginner, intermediate, where it's like complex, and then it goes back to simplicity with mastery.
Yep.
And like people are just like, no, just do this. And it's like, damn, that seems too like you don't want the answer because it's so simple, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like it,
Exactly.
yeah. Because I've had I'd be curious, like this was when I was in college because I started doing like programming for people while I was in college. Because I literally just figured out like linear periodization and progressive overloading
Yeah.
instead of like the whole like muscle confusion model where it's like I'm gonna confuse the shit out of my chest today. Incline, decline, like you're just mixed. There's no consistency, right? Like in movement selection. And then like someone I had sent me a picture of some guy's back, who I'm pretty sure was either in physique or like lower weight class bodybuilding. He's like, can I look like this? It was like, dude, that based on like how lean this man is and the amount of tissue, like this is some years of work. Like it's probably gonna take like at least And I don't even know, right? Like I think it was like probably 2 years. And he was like, so I can't do it in 6 months. I was like, I don't think so.
No. I love it. It's like you try to make these estimations, or you speculate on what these people were doing and how long it took, and like you look at some of these top bodybuilders and it's literally been like they've spent 15 years trying to get to
Oh
where they
yeah.
you got like, people come to you and show you pictures of this or that, the other thing. Not even just the biggest people, but like even like the bikini athletes and the wellness athletes. And they're like, how long would it take to get to a physique that could like be somewhat similar to this? And it's like many, many consistent years if you don't want to do gear.
Yeah.
Many years.
I feel like I had a point where I considered it when I was way too young to even have any business considering it, probably.
Yeah.
It's like you ever heard of Simply Shredded?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
I was on that, and that was where I found like I think Wayne Norton for the first time, and like he had fat before PH3, which is on bodybuilding.com.
Yeah.
It was
Yep.
God, way too much volume for anyone. What were you gonna say?
No, that I've definitely heard of it.
And like Ziz, like back when like
Yeah.
like and just like all those people, and I was like, God, like it'd say like their profile, somewhere like bodybuilding.com used to have like the transformation of the week. And
Yep.
some of them were probably on gear in hindsight. Like some weren't, but like I was just looking at like these 23-year-olds at 19, and I'm like, how the hell do I look like that? And this guy's got like Anavar abs basically, where he's probably like so dry. Like I'm like, that's insane. Like,
Yeah. You're like, oh, I just got to eat better. I just got to eat better, man.
yeah. I think one of the coolest things that this guy was super cool. He was transparent. He was a bodybuilder at my first gym, which was owned by a bodybuilder from England, who's on Gary tell you. But this dude was prepping for a show and was taking Anavar, and again, super transparent. And like how fast he dried out was like God damn. His name was Bobby. I was like, God damn, Bobby, like that's insane. Like it was like six from week 6 of 12 in his prep, which was far longer, but I guess like really dialing in. And correct me if like that's wrong with the timeline, but like I just saw him change in like the locker room and even walking around. I'm like, that's insane. Like,
Oh yeah. No, I mean like even every single week during a prep, you can either have like it just depends. It's different for every single person, but depending on what you're doing or what you implement, like your body's either going to go like within a week, you look drastically fucking different, or like you lose 1 pound, but you never know. For some people, their prep is so front loaded. And for other people, like,
yeah,
I mean, I was a very backloaded prep. Like my first couple of weeks of prep, you couldn't even tell I was prepping at all. I mean, like you could somewhat because I've always stayed like moderately lean, but like I didn't have prep shreds for the first couple of weeks, obviously at all because it's the first couple of weeks. But I was also scared because the scale wasn't budging, and I just remember like talking to my coaches, and I was like, "So what the fuck is happening, and why am I not losing weight?" And they're like, "Well, one, you're a woman, and it's kind of hard sometimes when you're already lean to tap into like your like womanly fat stores.
yeah,
So like." Be patient and chill out. And two, like you just started. So yeah, I remember that frustration.
no, I feel that. I feel like the best part, at least with powerlifting, when I used to cut weight, was the reverse. Like you get carbs back, you fill out with glycogen again. You wake up in the morning, you're like, I look sick. Like you have
Yeah.
striations still. At least that was my experience.
Yeah.
Like being lean enough, and I was like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah. We started, I think about 6 weeks out, we started doing like throughout the weekdays, we were at a much lower intake, and the weekends were my refeeds. And when you'd wake up after like, I'd have like 400 grams of carbs, and
Yeah,
I'd just be so vascular and so lean, and my arms would just look absolutely wild. You could see every single
yeah.
vein all the way up like through my biceps, and I just it was the coolest thing. It was so awesome. I don't miss it, I will say that. Like I love food, I love eating. I being super shredded and lean is fun for a little while, but I think there's a very special person who genuinely loves to be in that state and to prep that hard. I am not that person. I
I
like I
yeah.
like to go through it and then be done with
I'm
it.
definitely not that person. As long as I like feel pretty good, because I feel like I've definitely done the thing where like you perma bulk and you get too heavy, and then you're just like, I feel like a slug.
Yeah.
Like I was bigger, but I was like, okay, this just doesn't like it physically felt heavy to me, even like being in my body. And then like that was kind of where I figured out like where the middle or even just the weight gain rate in which I was like, okay, this is right. Like I still have these other athletic attributes without turning into like a small refrigerator
Yeah.
the way I walk. Like feeling like I'm just like this is just bad.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's kind of what led me after competing this most recent time away from being in that like bulking state. I started a new program and we were pushing food and wasn't pushing food too high or anything, but my body was not feeling good. I didn't feel like I was moving well. I was doing a lot of movements that were just kind of like making me feel achy, or I have like and I've told you this, but the spinal fusion that I have at the very bottom, doing stuff like a stiff-legged deadlift like just never felt great. It's just one of those movements that like my body doesn't like. It just doesn't feel good doing it. And it
Yeah.
was just there were a lot of just movements like that that I had been doing for like a year and a half to prep for the show and then to do the show. And I was like, I don't like this idea right now of just getting bigger and bigger and bigger for the sake of getting bigger so we can shred again in a year and a half for a show. Like, I don't feel like an athlete. I want to feel like an athlete. I want to be fast. I want to be healthy. I want to be mobile. I want to be strong, of course, but I don't just want to be big. I like want to be able to like, sprint if I need to sprint for some
Oh
reason.
yeah.
Like it just feels good. And like I said, like I in softball, what did I do? I was just sprinting. I was just running all the time. All I did was run. I was always the first one to finish the lap. Like that's what I did. And that was the kind of movement that I felt so good in, that now thinking back, like I haven't done anything like that in years. So I just talked to my coaches and I was like, hey, I gotta move in a very different way. And we can come back to competing literally at any time. I'm still, young enough that I've got probably a good like 5-10 years of, if I want to compete again, I can easily do it. But right now it's like I just want to be an athlete. I just want to be a powerhouse. I want to do a bunch of cool shit and
Yeah.
yeah, like feel capable, feel athletic, feel healthy, and hopefully like, physique wise it mirrors that, but that's just not my ultimate goal isn't necessarily looking a certain way anymore.
No, I feel that. I think that's like I had that with powerlifting when I got out of it, except it was like that was more about numbers than like physical appearance.
Yeah.
Where I was just like, I'm really tired of like, I mean, very delayed gratification sport for sure. I mean, bodybuilding is the same way, right? Like you're always just making these small deposits every day, every session, lifestyle habits, and then like finally, like it all comes to fruition on the platform or on the stage.
Yeah.
And like I was like, you know what? Like I just feel like I'm going through the motions, and I don't want to feel like that with training anymore. Like I want to be like, okay, I actually enjoy this versus like punching the clock.
Yeah.
Like all I've been doing now, I think for a couple of months is like a lot of the N1 stuff, like just messing
Yeah.
around with different positions and like, yeah, it's just a lot of fun because there's a lot of novelty. And I feel like for doing like, oh, I have to squat and deadlift again. It's like, cool. I'll be doing this for the next 12 months. And it's like,
Yeah.
I haven't done any of the big three in probably 6, 7 months.
See, I was the inverse because I mean with bikini, you're really, especially during season, you're not back squatting, you're not benching, you're definitely not doing any kind of conventional deadlift because like what you're trying to build or maintain is so much about, it's just like tiny and then glutes and shoulders
Yeah.
and without quads is the thing for bikini. So you have someone putting up a heavy barbell squat, like you're gonna develop your quads. So they need you to, what everything that we're doing was about, let's not grow the quads. Quads can't get too big. Not that my quads are too big, but for most people, it's like you're
Yeah.
develop the whole leg if you're training as an athlete, or if you're training for strength in the big three, you're going to develop everything all over. And that's like the complete opposite of what you want with bodybuilding, because bodybuilding is quite literally like, let's only develop this like one specific small little freaking muscle to give this illusion of this shape, because all we want are, again, like tiny waist, shoulders. They don't give a fuck about what your back looks like. It has to create the illusion of the tapered waist, but your hair literally is covering your back. So
Oh,
as shredded as your back might look, as good and cool as your back looks on stage, no one sees it because your hair is down. And
sucks.
then They don't even care. And then it's like, are your glutes not too big, but big enough and round enough at the
Yeah.
top, high end, and the hamstrings, but can't see too much hamstring detail. And it's so freaking nitpicky that like your exercise selection is very, very, very limited. And as soon as I got back into that kind of training program, after like a month off after my competition and doing it, like I said, for like a year and a half, I was like, I had just immediately messaged my coaches and I was like, hey guys, I hate to break it to you right now, but like, I don't fucking want to do this. I don't want to do this at all. Love you. Can we do something different?
No, I think that's super real because that's like I had that point during peak COVID where I had a full gym and I was hanging out with my first mentor, basically like my older brother, and we were hanging out in New York City because that's where he lives, and I was like, dude, if I deadlift 600, I think I'm just gonna quit lifting. And I was pretty close at the time, like for probably a single because I was repping like low fives, and like I was just like I don't want to because it was like I feel like for me all the gyms closed, right? I didn't have much of an online presence. Not that I would say I do now either.
Yeah.
Um, I exist, but like I don't know. Instagram isn't my. I don't make a lot of content. Like you guys crush content. Connor crushes content. Like I do, but I think more of what I'm gonna do is gonna be more lifestyle stuff at some point. Like I'll still do
Yeah.
a lot of movement because I love it, but like I'll probably talk more about lifestyle stuff on IG. But yeah, I was just like I was training 6 days a week. I had like high output cardio days, like full, like I said, full gym in my house. And then I was just like, yeah, if I do this, I'm just gonna quit. Like for how long? I think I'm just gonna quit. And he was like, I
Yeah.
don't think you want to train. So I took like a month off and just did nothing. And it was like, actually, I think it was 2 weeks, maybe it was 2 weeks. But like it just solidified for me how much of like self-image can be wrapped up in that from an unhealthy degree. And
Oh yeah.
like you want to enjoy, there's times you're gonna have to like put your nose to the grindstone, but like ultimately, I think I personally want to enjoy the process a lot more and explore through it. And then,
Yeah.
at times like, yeah, this is gonna suck. Let's fucking do it. But like other times, I don't want that to be like my entire career of fitness.
Absolutely. It's got to be seasons. It has to be seasons. And again, like I think it just takes a certain type of person to, I mean, if you love bodybuilding, if you're obsessed with bodybuilding, and I love bodybuilding, but I wouldn't say that I'm obsessed with it or that I want to find a way to make it like my entire career, because the people who have done that, they are almost in like a forever prep for the entire time that they are bodybuilders, in part because so much of their income comes from being, photo shoot ready and being sponsored and always just looking like they're the bodybuilder. And I love bodybuilding, but I don't have the passion enough for it specifically to do that to myself. I think my passion really lies in like that big picture of like, fitness, wellness, getting your average person off the street into the gym and more confident, on top of like specifically now metamorphosis, like Monarch metamorphosis program. We work with a lot of fitness coaches, newer online fitness coaches, to make them better coaches in terms of just communicating with their clients, because like I think that's a huge gap in the industry right now, is that it's so easy to become an online fitness coach, but it's not easy to be a good one.
Yeah.
It's just not, for a lot of them. There's a lot of programs out there about like how to build your business. Here's how you build a business. Here's how you get leads, but not how do you become a better coach? How do you just serve your people better? And I think for me, because that's where my passion really, really lies, like I'm only going to get so much fulfillment out of bodybuilding until I return back to how do I become a better coach? How do I become a better coach? And a lot of it for me is like throwing myself into, like we said, that kind of like guinea pig stage where it's like, well, I haven't done this before and there could be some value in it. It could make me a better coach. I could learn a lot through it. And like an athletic training block like I'm in right now, I'd never really approached that with structure before. So being able to learn through that, and of course, like long term, teach it, have new tools in my tool belt from doing a bunch of like athletic stuff in the gym. I'm like, this is the shit that I love. Like I could commit to a 6-month program, I can commit to a year-long program, but after about a year, it's like, what's the new challenge? What are you going to make difficult for me now that I feel great accomplishing because I feel like I didn't conquer bodybuilding, but I did it. I had a
Yeah.
great prep on an overall, and it was like,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
I checked a box, but now like what am I gonna do next? My coach was like, I think you'd really like boxing. I think you should get into boxing and you could probably be competitive in that. I'm like, that probably not. And
Oh,
just
really?
I love the idea of like boxing someone who has like little pads on their
Yeah.
hands.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah. Pad
like,
work.
this you like put me into a ring and I have to like aim at anybody's face, it won't happen. As soon as someone's aiming at my face, I'm too high maintenance of like of a woman to have anybody be fucking with my face.
So
Like, no, 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 no.
no, I totally hear you. And I think I love the name that you guys came up with, like for that to educate other trainers, like metamorphosis is a sick.
Yeah.
But no, I definitely agree because I think that's one of the toughest things with fitness, I think, is like the barrier to entry is so low. Like there are like I have my NASM CPT because I had to for formality reasons more so than anything. Like,
Yeah.
but like, there are certs I've never heard of that are even easier, like than that. I mean, because NASM is essentially it's your glutes, it's your calves. That's guess C on the test essentially. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's just like one of those things where like, you can look the part really well because of, you train really hard, which doesn't mean you know how to train other people really hard. There are genetic factors, there's lifestyle stuff, like base metabolic rates and stuff like that, right? And it's like that guy's bigger than you. It's like some of the smartest people I know are not the most jacked, simply because like it's not worth they're like, I don't care about the image from that standpoint that I'm gonna trade off all these other things for the purpose of getting there. He's like a couple of them are fathers, and I'm like, yeah, like I totally get that. You have a kid, like
Absolutely.
yeah. I do just think about it's funny you said I was at a men's work retreat like a month ago and they had like you could box with full pads. Or I'm sorry, no, with just gloves. And I wanted to get him in the face, and the other guy wouldn't hit me in the face. Like I even stuck my like chin out and dropped my hands. And they're like, pick your hands up. I was just like ignoring it. I was like, please, dude, hit me in the face. I've never been hit in the face before.
That's such a like male thing. It's like you're just totally open to it. For me, it's like if you fuck with my face, then like I mean, if you break my nose, if my lip gets
Oh no,
busted,
yeah.
like I would be I couldn't I mean I would film, but like because so much of what I do every single day is on camera, like even like breaking out for me sometimes I'm just like, whoa, is me. I
No,
can't,
I
can't
get it. Me and Connor have filmed videos where I've just had like one big pimple, and I'm like, really, really, dog? And like, I just watch the video as we're editing it, like, or I'm doing it, or he's doing it in Premiere Pro, and I'm like, fuck, man, how do I like edit that out? Um, no, I mean, this was in the context of like, it wasn't toxic. Like, they'd ask you, it was if it was either of you got malicious, it was like they stopped you. It
oh
was
yeah.
more like experience, like confrontation in a way that like you both just explored it, and like you ask the other person like, what do you want out of this? And it's like, let's just dance and see where this goes. Where someone else was like, I want you to fuck me up one time, not to me, to someone else.
Oh
And
my
like,
God.
so you could choose the person, and he chose this dude that knew how to fight, and he told us he knew how to fight. And every time this guy like went to swing at him, he just kept walking towards him. And I was like, dude, I mean, he knew, but he hit him one time, and you saw his eyes get wide. Like, I was like, he's like, what happened? I'm like, yeah, like,
Wow.
because that's what he did for a living too. He was a martial arts teacher,
Ah, that makes
and then
sense.
the other guy had never fought anyone before. Not that that's a prerequisite for anything, but he was like, I want to know what it's like to go up against someone who's a fighter. And I was like, that sounds like a very bad idea.
That sounds terrifying.
Yeah.
Absolutely would never elect to do so. Again,
Neither would
a
I.
male thing, very male thing to do.
I would go in the ring with Floyd Mayweather though for like 3 grand a second. Like I'll just run around for about a minute.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I can see that. I can see that.
Like
That's
someone
fair.
like because when he fought, I think it was Pacquiao or McGregor, but it was just like how many thousands per second. It was like, I'll do it for a round. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it was I remember very vaguely, I think it was like Pacquiao and Mayweather, and Mayweather was the one who won, right?
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know much about all of that, but those are the names that I remember. everybody liked Pacquiao because he was very sweet, and I was like, okay, like that's who I would root for. I'd root for the nice one.
Yeah. I mean, Floyd's definitely one of the best like boxers in his sport. Like we have the pinnacles of every sport. But like I think it was like 5 grand the second or something was like the payout.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, yeah. So I feel like outside of fitness, we talked a little bit about like I know Zach's super into anime.
Yeah, yeah. So he go ahead if you have questions,
No,
ask
no,
me
no,
because I could
please,
try.
please. I want to hear wherever you're gonna go with it.
So when we I would say my gateway into anime is like a non-anime. Everybody has like the thing that got them into it. And of course, as a kid, Nickelodeon had Avatar: The Last Airbender.
That's
And
probably his
as a
favorite show.
oh god, I mean, it was such a well done show in itself. Like make it, it's not necessarily I think there's the debate of like, is it anime? Is it not? Or like, I've heard people
So
explain it
it's
in both ways.
yeah.
Yeah,
It-
I like. What would you say?
it's not. So like I think the Urban Dictionary definition is like all anime is animated, but not all animation is anime. Like
Yes.
it's where it just comes from in the world. But like I've rewatched that, like because I don't think I realized what I was watching when we were like growing up watching it, and I'm just like, oh my god, like I'm gonna fucking like ball.
Yeah. I mean, such a wonderful show that watching it as a kid, I loved it. And I remember like it was a show that my mom wanted to watch with me. And that was always like kind of odd because it was like, this is a cartoon. And yet my mom every week would be like, let's like watch this show together because like it's such a good show. And I was surprised that she liked it. And then in my adulthood, I think when it came to Netflix, I remember like just binging it a couple times through. And at that point, like I wasn't like a Naruto person. That's
Yeah.
Zach, because Zach loves Naruto, and I somewhat know the storyline of it through him and through popping into certain episodes, but that one was never one that like really reeled me in or got me. If I sat down and like engaged with it, I could get into just about anything with that, with like that world. But I like that one wasn't my one. But when AOT came on,
Yeah.
I think it was Netflix in the I think it was like the dubbed version on Netflix where I could just like sit there and actually watch it instead of like listen to it and watch it because I am the person who needs it to be like fully like talked over.
That's okay. I think it's a skill. Like at some point, like my dad used to be like, "How are you watching this?" I'm like, "Dude, it's easy." Like I'm not actually even thinking about what they're saying. I just understand like the
Yeah,
subtitles. It's like if you're doing it at the same time.
yeah. I think like I did watch a couple. I think the third season I could only find of AOT with subtitles on some
Yeah.
web because I got so into it. And then they only had like 1 or 2 seasons on Netflix. I think they only even had like the first season on Netflix. And I got so freaking into that show that I was like, I have to watch all of it. I have to know. And so found it on the deep dark web and just like binged it for days and caught up to a point where I think season 4, they hadn't put out any episodes yet. And so then I found the manga and I
Oh, geez.
just binged that too. And so I know the whole ending of it. And
Oh,
like,
I
I don't know, like, there's a lot of people out there I know who watch the show who haven't read the manga, but then I'm also the type that will, like, when I'm into something, it's like I'm into the depths of
oh
it.
yeah.
I've read all the Reddit pages and all the opinion pieces on like the entirety of the series and the ending and like all of the like connections between things and I get
Oh
very
yeah. The lore.
yes and it's really just like Game of Thrones, right, where like people have a very strong reaction to the ending. I found that was kind of what I was witnessing, at least through the AOT fandom, was a very strong reaction to the ending. And I love stuff like that gets really controversial because of like it's a really, in my opinion, it's a display of great art when you can get people to feel that strongly, positive or negative, about what you've put out there. So that series specifically was just like that. I would say, like, hands down, 10 out of 10 my favorite anime to this day. I haven't watched, they're still making episodes, or they're still waiting to release like the second
Yeah, they're
half.
waiting.
But yeah, I mean, just finishing the manga, if they do follow suit with that, which they have so far, I think
Yeah.
it's
I loved it because psychologically, it, like by season 3, really season 4, like you see how insane it's getting.
yeah.
And like I thought, because I know how it ends. It's funny because someone lied to Connor. They're like, everyone dies. I'm like, that's not true. But the dude who wrote it did say, I think like 5, 6 years ago after the first season, he's like, I'm just gonna kill everyone in the end. Like he said he had the ending done and there was like some massive uproar. And he's like, okay, calm your asses down. I got this.
Yeah.
But like just watching it, like the ending, from what I know, like makes sense, like how it happens.
Yeah.
And even his Aaron's character development. But like I've said this a couple times on my podcast, like Gabby is just such a good character that parallels, like you don't understand the others, like you don't have perspective, and then once you do, you realize like how much delusion there was between you and you thinking you're that different from someone else, really.
Yeah.
Um,
Thinking too that like the I think a lot of times when we're watching storylines like that, or stories in general, we think of like almost not a perfect world, but we think of things are gonna end differently than they would in real life. You get so bought into that idea that like
yeah,
different. And like with this ending, and why I loved the ending, I would say, like, not a consensus that I have found online, but I liked the ending so much because the way that I heard someone else phrase it was that, like that kind of like continuous cycle of like war in the real world. Like, have we ever just had endless peace?
yeah, like
No, like it's never been a thing. So when we watch these shows or movies or whatever that end in war, or that end in like that a cycle that can't be broken, we get so mad. Again, same thing with Game of Thrones, not an anime, but like, these
no,
stories that,
no, for sure. I finished it.
yeah, exactly. It's like you think it's gonna, you want it so bad to be different. There's all this character development. There's all of this and that that leads you down this road where you think it's gonna end this way that you really, really want it to end, and it doesn't. And it just ends in that, like, oh, we're back to where we were, this like sad cycle of, war and fighting or whatever. And it's like, well, you look at the human race and look at our history of war and look at the current war. It like that's real
Yeah,
life. And then if people are so pissed that
I
it's real.
mean, I just think about it like there's a lot of things definitely from the Holocaust that they took inspiration from, for sure.
Yeah.
And like I got into a little bit of the lore with it. So like the Titans are based off like Norse mythology or something. Like there's like the 9 realms.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or then like the paths is like the tree in Norse mythology.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, I don't care about spoilers. I don't care if do you care if I go into anything?
I'll go for it.
I thought like for this is a spoiler for Attack on Titan, I guess if anyone's listening versus watching, like it's definitely like Aaron had to become what he did, like the most hate, like he was the only solution to the problem. I just didn't like, no one would have wanted it to end that way.
Yeah.
Like, but I was like, that makes sense. Like, because even through season 4, like you're seeing him try to protect the people he cares about by being a piece of shit in their eyes.
Yeah.
Like, but I mean, you even saw, I feel like in the beginning of season 4, where they're in Marley, like everyone on the other side of the world like hates him. Like, it's like, cool, I'm already that guy. Like, I'll save everyone by being the person that has to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's like the problem that I think we run into, is like you have the love for the character, the main character, and that main character, when you love them, is supposed to be the hero. And I love any kind of storyline that turns your hero into somewhat of a villain.
Yeah,
It just evokes so much emotion. I think overall, that's what anime is really good at doing.
yeah,
It's just good at telling a story and like really evoking a lot of emotion through that story, whether positive or negative. But I mean, like, Aaron is so just like impassioned from day one, and he has a reason for it. And it's
Yeah.
so crazy when at the end of the series he has that kind of like, as you see, it's like that time loop that happens, and like
Yeah.
he's being the Titan like to his own mom, and it's like you needed to basically give a reason to Aaron to be so impassioned as a kid. And unless he, I mean, if he didn't lose his mom, if every single little thing didn't
Yeah.
it did, he wouldn't have been there to change everything. And so, like, no matter what he was going to do, he was just going to reinforce that loop. And the complexity of that storyline, and just like
Oh, forget about it.
the layers and layers and layers, which is what, like, I would sit there, I'd like pause the episode and I would Google something to make sure that I understood every single thing that
Yeah.
was on. And that's what Zach hated about it. Zach was not a really big AOT fan because of how many layers there were. He liked how
The fighting, maybe.
yeah, I mean, like, yeah, he likes how Naruto, like, yeah, there's complexity to it and there's a great storyline behind it, but there isn't like time hopping and layers, and like you don't go through half the series confused and wondering like, oh, what's that next
Yeah,
piece?
it's very consistent.
Yeah, I like the next piece of the puzzle. I like that, like, as everything kind of like began to unfold, and then you found like these were loyalties lie, and like you start off in just like this tiny little place, and you think the entire series is just going to take
Yeah.
place within these walls, and then all of a sudden you're open to the fact that like there's an entire world, and the whole series now is going to expand beyond that. It's like it's just so vast. It goes from something so small to something so vast, and like the royalty system there, like everything
Oh,
is
yeah. How many?
so deep.
No, I get chills thinking about like where he's looking across the ocean because like that's their childhood dream, and
Yeah.
he's just like, I'm gonna fucking kill him, and I was like, oh shit, like. I mean, also just how much shit he had to go through because, like you said, right? Like we get scenes that it's like they finally panned out a little bit more in the. They show you like the scene with Grisha, like,
Yeah.
and then they zoom out, and you're like, whoa, wait, why is he here? And like, how did like, or even like where he's like, you gotta save Armin and Mikasa, and they're like, who the fuck is Armin and Mikasa? He's like, I don't know, like the guy who was the previous Attack Titan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, I mean, I think something you might like is like a show that's really good at kind of you start to love a character and then like they do one or two things that are such high magnitude. You're like, God, you're a fucking piece of shit. But like they're so they're such a good character that you like you want to love them, but you at the same time hate them. Is like it's called Classroom of the Elite.
Okay.
It's on Crunchyroll if you guys have it. Otherwise, you can definitely find it everywhere else on the internet. Like, and the main character is just like such a tactician, similar to Aaron, but like in a more semi-realistic setting of like a high school, like a really elite high school.
Mm.
Like you're competing for like rank amongst other classes, and like you get a monthly wage, and if you're doing worse on tests, like the whole class. But like you just the way he thinks is like he's playing chess, everyone else is playing checkers.
Mm.
It's not even that close. Like, and you're just watching it, and you're like, oh shit, he's like finally like opening up as a character developing. And you're like, nope, he's just a fucking giant piece of shit. Like, I'm like, wow, like I did not know I could feel this.
Oh, I like that. I love that kind of like just like it has to jar you. It really has to just shake you up. I will say, anything that's like also kind of dark, I would say is
Okay. Yep.
really, really into. Um
I feel like yeah,
Death Death Note was
I was gonna, yeah, that's the starter for I feel like so many people.
that one was really, really good too. That one was one that Zach watched as like it just like much younger, and then after we watched AOT together, he was like, well, we should definitely watch Death Note because you'll like Death Note. And I'm like, once I'm in, like I'm in, I'm open to anything, I'll watch anything, like just take me on the journey. But I also know that like I've never watched One Piece. I've had people recommend One Piece to me, but
That's an ordeal. I'm semi caught up, and you're that like 1,039 episodes.
yeah, that one I think someone told me that like it's definitely more of like a lighthearted show. Like there's there's a lot of stuff to it, but it doesn't get necessarily as dark. But again, like I haven't watched it, so
Not to that magnitude. Like I think Oda, who's the guy who like created it and like illustrates it, like is probably like they call him the GOAT because in terms of world building, like he's got people from like chapter 100 coming back in like 1000 and like finishing the loop of like that's why her father was killed and she's the next one. And like you're just like Jesus Christ. Like I mean, but yeah, it's definitely not as like insane as like one Death Note. Like if you guys have seen Tokyo Ghoul, that's the first 2 seasons are good. After that, it goes to shit. The first 2 seasons, you're just seeing like, you know, I guess like people becoming the thing they didn't want to become or they hated in the beginning. And like the evolution of them like realizing like, you know, the world isn't sunshine and rainbows.
yeah.
I feel like a Kame Got Kill, if you haven't seen it, like that's like shorter. It's 24 episodes. That's pretty dark. Like not overly dark, but like definitely like you watch it and you're like, they do a good job of like, have you seen Demon Slayer?
Oh, we started Demon Slayer. We started to watch Demon Slayer, and that's when we jumped. We were a couple episodes in, and then we had a friend come and visit, and then he was like, "Have you seen Jujutsu Kaisen?" And I was like, "No."
Oh, okay.
And when he described that one, I was like, "That seems really fucking cool." I love the whole idea of like the whole curse thing
Yep.
on in that whole world. Like again, like there's like some darkness there. Like there's like lots of people dying for no reason. Like not that I, but like it's like, oh, this is intriguing. But then Demon Slayer definitely starts off that way, but like I think it was like the fourth episode, Zach was like, I just can't get into this. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, what I was into it. So he's actually gone for the week, so I'm probably gonna end up watching it by myself since he
Ep-
got
Episode 19 came up on Facebook for me, like a clip of it. And that's what I honestly think. Like people have done artwork of that scene, like when you get there, Demon Slayer. But I think what they do a really good job of, and Kame Got Killed does this too, is like you actually have empathy for the bad guy because you understand their backstory and like how they ended up becoming like a
yeah.
villain, the conditions of like their childhood or like, you know, people who are in war. And you're just like this just scarred you and you have enough trauma that it distorted like this is your understanding of reality.
Yeah. I
uh
mean, to jump back all the way to like Avatar, the same thing with Zuko. I just loved that character so much. And he's the bad guy, but then you really do develop all this empathy for him and you're like, I don't want you to lose either. Like I
yeah,
don't want you to die. I don't want you to lose. And so any storyline where you can have that tie to both sides is that's just great.
no, that's the third episode I ever did was with my like older brother, and it's like one of the three things is becoming Zuko. So
Mhm.
like it was just his character development, which and then like the awkward scene where he's like, "Hey, Zuko here," like he's just rehearsing how to try and like actually help Aang because he realizes like that. I think Iroh is still one of the best characters.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, but how far are you in Jujutsu?
Think we're only like 7 or 8 episodes in. I know it's a shorter series as well, right?
24 so far. The second season though will like if you like darker stuff and it comes out in February, I think like it will make season one look like nothing.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Um, but like my favorite character in that is probably Gojo, like from a comical standpoint, because he's just so overpowered.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, but Yuji, like I don't know if Mahito has come up in that yet. The dude with all the stitches, kind of the curse with all the stitches, and
Yes. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
he has a really important role like later on in the show that you just understand like it kind of comes you come to one of those character development moments where it's like you either take the fork in the road and like go the way you didn't want to go and that means helping more people and you have to cross an old value or like you could try and do the same thing and you're just going to fail and everyone's going to suffer.
Yeah. I think we just encountered him and he's like really fucking evil.
Yeah,
Right.
he's a fucking terrible person.
Okay.
Like,
So
or a
that's like
terrible curse, yeah.
the other guy that I like have experienced, I think, for like 2 or 3 episodes is that like he's like a teacher. He's like very calculated and very like
Oh, is
just
this the dude with the glasses?
yes. Yeah.
Not Gojo, the dude with the tie and everything.
Yes.
Oh yeah, Nanami.
Yeah, I like him a lot.
Funny.
I think like the juxtaposition between him and Yuji is just really fun. Like when you have those like two just very strong character types of very different people, and then you pair them up, like I think that's just hilarious. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
like.
He's funny too because he just clashes with like Yuji's Gojo all the time. He's be like, Gojo's the best. He's like, shut up. Like,
Yep. Yeah.
oh no, it's cool you gotten into it. I feel like a lot of it's become so much more mainstream, like anime as a whole.
Oh yeah.
There's definitely still stuff that like it's like, hey, don't watch this around people.
Yeah.
Like, or like I get memes on my stuff sometimes will be like anime's all about food. And like one of them is Attack on Titan. Like, and I'm like, okay, that's kind of fucked. Like another one is like A Promised Neverland, which is on Netflix.
Okay.
But it's the first season is like it's the horse meme where you're like season one is like, super detailed horse drawing, and then season two is like kindergarten stick figure. So they're just like, and they fucked it up.
Damn.
But
Disappointment too when you get like partway into something and then it just like it doesn't do it for you.
yeah, the best thing this might be the best anime I've seen so far, but I'm biased because I love like psychology. It's on Netflix. It's called Violet Evergarden.
Violet or
Violet, like the flower. I've cried almost every episode so far. I'm only 5 in. Like,
wow.
yeah, because psychologically, I think you can based on what I know from the times we've talked and like what you're into. If you can unpack it from like the standpoint of like trauma, like emotions and stuff like that, you're just gonna be like, fuck me, like I'm watching this and it's just like, oh no, like
Yeah.
it's so good and it's crazy because I just wasn't expecting myself to get into it. And then someone else I knew recently was like, no, I don't think it's that great. I'm just like I'm really ready to slap him. Like, you go back and watch this shit right now.
Yeah, that's how I feel when I talk about like when I was watching AOT and I was getting so into it, I could not stop watching every episode. And Zach was just like, this one's okay. There's just too many layers to it. And I'm like, how can you not, how do you not love the fact that there's so many layers to it? How are you not obsessed with the depth? Like, why don't you want to binge watch this with me? This is so fucking like good. There's so much story here. And he's like, I just want it to be like, I don't want to have to think about it. And I'm like, what? That's the whole
No,
point.
that's the best part for me too. Like, I mean, I grew up watching Naruto with my dad, and like, there's character development. I love the show. Most of my tattoos are based off that show. Like, but yeah, it's you have an idea of where it's going from the very get go. Like, there are some curveballs, but you're not just like one of the best characters in that show is like Itachi.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember I remember Zach was showing you this water bottle with like all the stickers of the Akatsuki.
Yep.
Like, and Itachi's easily the best character development. He does like all the things we talked about with Aaron, but he starts on the opposite end.
Mhm.
Have you seen like his reverse kind
I've
of?
I've seen like little glimpses of every season like here and there, but I remember he was one of the ones that like is Zach's favorite. And when Zach would say that, it was him or started with an O was the other one.
Obito?
I think so. Like he would say, like, yeah, this is my favorite character or something like that. And people were like, what the fuck? Why? Oh, Zach has the headband of the Sound Village, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Why sound? Like, and I think it was because is Itachi's with the Sound Village, yes? Or am I wrong?
Itachi? No, Itachi's from the Leaf.
Who am I thinking of? Because then I know who Itachi is, but I'm thinking of maybe it starts with an
I wonder if it's the mist. Are you sure it's the sound? Is it Orochimaru?
it might be Orochimaru.
Orochimaru is he's from the Leaf, but like I think he was with the Sound Village at one point.
Yeah, I think that's because like Zach would be like, yeah, like I like really like Orochimaru, and people would be like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's a hot take right there.
Okay,
Like,
that's it. That's it. Then it is Orochimaru. It's not because I think if I have in my head the picture of the person I'm thinking of, then I like Itachi, but he was like, yeah,
I mean, yeah, if you care if I go into it or if you're gonna watch it,
go for
like
it.
you just grow up watching like Sasuke's whole family died via Itachi killing them, and then
Yeah,
when you get the backstory that like he did it all to protect his brother, Like, and the last couple of moments is like Itachi basically dying of some terminal illness, trying to get Sasuke to kill him so he can like unlock the Sharingan that only gets triggered when you suffer great loss.
Yeah.
And then like you figure out, you're like, yeah, not only did this man like put the village on his back and stop a genocide, like he had to burden all of this just to like do that. And then like you have this whole, you have it, and as a villain he was just great because he was like you were saying with I think it was Naname, like being so like he was super calculated. Like Itachi never goes all out. Like he's just like, okay, this is like 6 out of 10 for me. Like RPE 5 if I'm gonna really try here.
Yeah.
Like, and he's just so good. But I feel like something that would be cool to transition to would be like, what else outside of like fitness is a huge part of your life, like the community you guys have, everything else. Like, what else do you like to explore outside of training? Like, whether it be reading, movies, anything.
Oh, I will say, and this is something that's kind of like reawakening in me recently. And I mean, like you could consider it to be fitness, but I wouldn't necessarily always put it in the perspective of fitness is kind of the food world. And being that like my my major was conservation resource studies, so much of kind of like the world of where your food comes from. And if I'm putting it into like the perfect example, I would say like Chef's Table on Netflix makes me like that's a show that makes me cry because I feel like it's just so beautiful what food can do for a person. I mean, even just taking away the health aspect of things, but the culture behind it and the expression of art through food. Like I've told people many times, like my favorite art form is food. So if like we're talking about interests there, definitely that, like just the like expansiveness of that. Um, and I mean, your whole life kind of becomes fitness once you get into the fitness world. But that, and then just like the kind of like different routes that you can dive into with content creation. And like, I've gotten really into interior design lately just because we moved, and I'm just like really fascinated by that whole world and how you can kind of create this whole vibe within a home by like changing like a circular fucking vase to a square one or whatever. I don't know. It's
Oh,
that
that's crazy. I
it's
mean,
really
most of the stuff I watch on YouTube when I'm just like I don't want to watch an anime, like I can't go all in, is like food cooking videos. Like because I'm always super fascinated with like first of all, some people's palates are mind blowing.
yeah.
Like they'll be like, I'm gonna make this McDonald's dipping sauce but better. And I'm just like, he's like mustard seed, honey. There's a little bit of like a toenail. And I'm like, how do you know this? Like, and then like seeing them put it together. Like, if you and Zach ever come out to Portland, there's a place called Malco, which is Connor's favorite restaurant, one of them. And you look it up, and literally the menu is outrageous. Like, you read it, and you're like, the chef is on LSD, no
Yeah.
doubt about it. Like, and if he ever hears this, like, I love him, like, because I went there, and it was just like you take a bite of the food, and like your first bite and your last chew are such different flavor profiles. I was like, I love it, but I don't understand how you did this.
Yeah.
Everything they make is like that.
Yeah, those are the things, you know, like where people are like, oh, you go to these fancy restaurants and the bites are so small. I'm like, it's because it's not about feeding you. It's about
Yeah,
through an entire experience. And
yeah, for sure.
that, I mean, it is just like art. It's trying to evoke an emotion from you. It's trying to like take you on a journey. And that's what I love about like that whole world of food, because you can approach that in so many ways. You have the people who like make a lot, like they make that comfort food that is like really, really, really satiating. And like someone making like the most like intense, amazing like mac and cheese or
I was
whatever, like
just thinking that, yeah.
but then like and like also they're thinking about like, especially like if you're thinking about the, you know, where things come from and why a person can spend um they had an episode again on like Chef's Table where this woman was talking about a journey to making like the perfect loaf of bread. It's just bread. It's just bread, but she spent like years just developing this recipe for making bread out of like a couple like simple ingredients, but like the exact like amount of each of those ingredients and like what goes into creating something so simple as just bread. And then on the complete opposite side of the spectrum, you have something like that where it's like you read a menu, you understand nothing in terms of the ingredients, and yet you're taken through like in one bite like this just crazy experience of all these different flavors or textures or smells or whatever. And there's a restaurant in Peru where this guy literally like he gets everything, absolutely everything from Peru. And a lot of what he does is try to use like the earth and quite literally use like dirt and rocks and leaves in his cooking in a very like specific way to like bring like salt in and minerals in or whatever. And like you think like you're gonna put dirt in my fucking food, bro. And yet like I mean just raving reviews. People travel from all over the world to go to this restaurant because not only is it like an incredible taste and experience, but like when you learn about where things are coming from and why, it just makes it like just 10 times better. It's just so fucking cool.
I think I hear that and I just think of like for myself too. It's like I feel like the kind of people we are based on like how you're talking about food and like what I know in terms of both of our fitness journeys. It's like you just love exploring like when people have like that mastery over something and the granularity that they've like committed themselves so deeply to it.
Yeah.
Like that's when I listen to like my brother talk about psychology or spirituality, like or Bill Hartman talk about physical therapy. Same thing with like Connor talk about movement. Like Bill has been doing this for if I don't know if you've ever stumbled across this stuff.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
I hear him talk, and I'm just like, again, I don't know anything, but like I'm excited because I'm just like, this guy's blowing my fucking mind. And
Yeah.
like, the way he explains it, just because he's had so much time to like study, explore, like Bill doesn't even, from what I know, like, because my friend works for him, like he reads a lot of books on physics now. Like he's not even reading training stuff. He's just learning like how do I unweight your foot, which then allows you to like turn this way or do, and you'll get across that stuff in the course probably around week 8
Okay. Yeah.
which is weight room stuff. But like you just hear him say it in like very different language, and I'm like, yeah, he's like peeled the onion so many layers down at this point. It's just like it's really beautiful. It's just exciting to like same thing with the chefs that I watched, and I'm like, I now I'm gonna go make ramen in my kitchen. I'm gonna do it in like 2 weeks. I have like a stock pot.
It makes you like so excited to try something on that like that next level, but even like it's just so enjoyable to experience someone else's passion at that extent when they're like
For sure.
that's just like it's the coolest thing to see how deep so many things can go. Like, and I would say like one of the cool things about TikTok is that you find these pages of people doing things that you're like, I never knew that this existed. I never knew that this had so much depth. I know that there's a lot of like controversial opinions about TikTok these days, but one of the coolest things is just the massive exposure we get to everybody else's interests
Yeah.
and why they love doing what they do, or something that they're like really like welding TikTok. Ew.
Oh, so I actually know how to weld.
Amazing.
Because my dad's a mechanic. So like when I was bored and he was like, I have to work on this, I was like, can I just go play with the welder? Like, and he showed me how to weld. So no one's just like, that's bad parenting. And I was just like, I'm gonna make a log rack. And I was like, okay. And like I gifted him one time because we used to burn wood.
Yeah.
I was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna weld these things together. And like, yeah, it was just fun. Like,
There's
but
there's so many layers to that too. Like
oh,
that's a that people like just make like a trap like traveling welders, people who like
underwater. I worked with an underwater welder once. And he was like, just explaining how to like, first of all, like, not only are you underwater, but like, you have the medieval airline up, but like now you got fire underwater. And I'm like, and you can't see a lot depending on where you are, and in other places you could. But I'm like, his name was Shaka. He was a personal trainer too, eventually. And I was like, dude, you fucking lived. Like he was just breaking down his career. And I'm just like, I gotta do like him and David Attenborough. Like
yeah.
you or David Attenborough, I'm like, I gotta live that kind of life.
That's another thing that I had great interest in school, obviously, like with the whole conservation background. Like I used to tell people that my dream job was to be a nature photographer or videographer for something like the show Planet Earth or anything like that. Not that I have any skill in photography or videography at all whatsoever, but I was like, yeah, like I'll go out and like I would dream job is to go out and take pictures of all of like the whales and the deer and thing like that. Not at all in my being. I don't have the eye for it, and I also like wouldn't have the patience to sit there and be a wildlife photographer all day every day, but I used to think that I could. And that was like a passion of mine for like a quick second. I was like, no, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get really good at this. Never happened. Never happened.
I feel like I can think of like I can't even think of it because I feel like I've had so many where I'm like, I'm gonna go become the world champion of this. Then I'm like, oh wait, like this person's been training since they were like 5. I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm 15. It's like
Yeah.
which doesn't mean you can't, right? But like, yeah, definitely like, or it's like, well, I don't really have the natural gift for this, which doesn't mean I can't do it. But by the time I overcome the learning curve, like it's probably not worth it for me. I'm not that into it that I'm gonna do that. But it's a fun idea to think about.
Yeah. Same with I got into flipping furniture for a little while because my mom knows how to do that stuff and she'll do that for just like the house and
I
because the
got my
way
couch.
yeah, just it's nice to be able to like take something old and make it new and make it pretty and she's just fantastic at it and so she taught me how to do that and I did a couple furniture pieces and in in doing that you learn just enough you're like oh I could do this a lot and now that YouTube exists you find all these people who are like making a full-time living and have like a million followers on YouTube just flipping furniture and teaching you how to do it and then you get sucked into that world and you're like okay, I'm gonna be a furniture flipper. I'm gonna do this. And then 3 months later, on to the next thing.
Yeah. So I actually I painted shoes for a little while, like
Yeah.
with the acrylic paint. So I could do art. I'm halfway decent for someone who definitely doesn't practice as much, and I have a natural inclination towards it.
Uh,
Like, and I was just painting shoes in my basement, like back when I lived in Jersey. Like, take acetone, strip off like the old. Like, I thrifted a pair of Jordans and then redid them. Like, and I just remember I was like, okay, cool. Maybe I want to do like custom shoes. And this was right around like I'd get that on my feed because I was into sneakers at the time. And then like I would just see like the level of detail like that people would have to go through. And I'm like, fuck, I don't know if I don't think I have the time to commit to this being in like high school or like early college. And I was just like, but it's insane. Like it's really crazy how skillful some people are. And like that, and then I was just thinking of too, like we were talking about like interesting things like people do. It's like, you're a chef, someone's a gardener, and like their perspective is unique. I just messed up my leg the other day very slightly on my knee. So I had to go to the hospital. I got an x-ray, and the dude who x-rayed me has a YouTube channel where he throws, you ever heard of magnet fishing?
no.
So you get a high power like industrial magnet and you throw it into a river and you pull out whatever comes up. So there are a couple of people who like scuba dive in rivers and like with find GoPros, cell phones. Some return it to people. Like, but he's this, and people have found guns. Like this
Yeah.
guy, like I found like 7 guns before. Like, and I checked out his YouTube channel. Like, holy shit! Like this guy's my X-ray technician. Like,
Yeah, just the coolest stuff that you find that people are into, and then they get like really good at it, and you're like, what? Like
but
you're magnet fishing? Like,
I told someone else the other day, and then you also get people who just come out of the woodwork that you've known that you didn't know had this hobby. I'm like, yeah, my X-ray tech was like into magnet fishing, and this girl we train at the gym was like, oh yeah, my boyfriend loves magnet fishing, and she's like, what's this guy's YouTube channel? And I'm like, whoa, is this like a Portland like North like Pacific Northwest thing? Like people just throw magnets and things, and it's not. But I was like, I don't know who would think of that, right? Like I just never think of these things.
wild.
But I loved having you on. If there's any, like, if people want to work with you, find you, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
I always just say Instagram. My Instagram is Meg Hayes, MEAGHAYES. And you can find me there or just email me at meghayes.fit@gmail.com. But usually, if you type in my name to pretty much any platform you can find me there. I'm on YouTube, I'm on TikTok, I'm on all the places and some.
Everything. Nice. Well, thank you so much for being on, and I know I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was so fun.